What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show, and we have a lot to get to in the world of volleyball. Such as the first two rounds of the NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I tournament are in the books. Who advanced and who has been sent packing and sent to Cancun. Also, the NCAA Division III Women's Volleyball National Championship did not disappoint as Juniata outlasts Wisconsin Whitewater to win their third straight national championship and their 97th straight match. Also, how about Feather River winning the 3C2A Women's Volleyball Championship over Fresno City? How about that? In a reverse sweep, mind you. Also, we have some results from the NAI Women's Volleyball Tournament and the NCAA Division II Women's Volleyball Tournament, as well as some NIVC action. So hand me a volleyball, set the net. Drama about Set Volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday evening, Monday afternoon, Monday, wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way to episode 276 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on StreamYard. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Also, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We are trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the calendar year. And with your help, we can make that happen. You all can make that happen. And we would appreciate your support. And we appreciate those that are supporting. Also, make sure to check us out on other podcast platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spreaker, YouTube, obviously, Spotify, GeoSavin, Podcast Addict, Podchaser. The list goes on and on. Make sure to check out our website, iSportsRadio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our page dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our merchandise shop, where you can cop all sorts of iSports Radio t-shirts, tank tops, and hoodies, especially for the winter. Also, make sure to check out the iSports Radio Hall of Fame, which is actually underway for this year's voting, and so much more. For the last 10 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Before we continue on, we need to give word to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. So without any further delay, let's get on into our sponsors and what iSports Radio is all about.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Seal the Deal Wax Seals. We definitely do appreciate them for keeping the lights on here at IE Sports Radio. Also, make sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com. We would greatly appreciate you if you checked out that, bought some merchandise, and bought some IE Sports Radio swag. All right, but without any further delay, let us get on into the volleyball action as Christian Malley pops into the chat room. He says hi to everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in, Christian. I really appreciate it. He's actually one of USRN's biggest fans. And if I recall correctly, he's been fan of the year for USRN for quite a bit. So thank you for popping into the chat room, Christian. And my boy, Marcus Los, great, pops to the chat room. He says, salute to you too, good sir. I appreciate you for tuning in. And in case you're wondering, Marcus, I do still have my set point swag on. Just had to throw that out there because in my Saturday's episode of Set Point Extra Points, he was telling me we got some Set Point merchandise. I need that. And one day, like I said, one day when Set Point becomes a big thing, I will have Set Point merchandise for all of my fans and all of my good fellow teammates at IE Sports Radio. But one miracle at a time. Anyway, so now let's recap some women's volleyball, some NCAA women's volleyball. But before we get on into that, make sure to follow Set Point on social media on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram at set_point IESR. And you can follow me personally on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Teran Rodriguez 1. All right, now let's get on into the volleyball action. So NCAA women's volleyball day 3 recap. So we've pretty much gone through the first 2 rounds fully, which I think is awesome sauce. So we had Pitt defeating Oklahoma on the 3rd day, which Oklahoma gave Pitt actually quite a bit of a battle, but in the end, Pitt was able to muscle its way through that. The first set was pretty dramatic. Oklahoma dug its way out of, I think it was 22-17 deficit, and then eventually Pitt was able to turn the tide And eventually the rest of the way, it was pretty much all Pitt. It kind of reminded me of Pitt's match against USC from earlier in the season, which I was in attendance for. And I just think Pitt is just on a whole other level. They are determined to win their first ever national championship after falling short in the Final Four the past 3 seasons. So Pitt will draw Oregon in the regional semifinals, and Pitt will host the regional semifinals and finals, which I think is pretty cool. Or as you fancy people like to call, or as I like to call it, the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, which I will always refer to it as the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, unless it's the NIVC, which has a different terminology, but I digress. So elsewhere in the bracket, you've got Kentucky versus Missouri. That's going to be a fun one right there. I'm going to dive a little bit more deeper into that a little bit later in the show. I want to also touch base on all of the other women's volleyball tournaments that have been going on collegiately. So, yeah. But Pitt, Oregon is a rematch of day one of, well, not day one, but the first week of the NCAA women's volleyball season between Pitt and Oregon, where Pitt swept Oregon. This time it's going to be at Pitt or Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, which I think is going to be pretty cool as well. And then we had Stanford taking down LMU at Stanford in straight sets, which I thought, I kind of figured it was going to be, that was kind of expected in my opinion, just because LMU is good, but when you face a powerhouse like Stanford, you're going to need to play some perfect volleyball. And this isn't 2015 when LMU upset Stanford in the second round, back when they had Sarah Sponsel. Either way, LMU would have needed to play perfect volleyball to take down the likes of Aaliyah Rubin, Sammy Francis, Alina Ogilvie, Cami Minor, and so much more. And then also we had Florida upsetting Kansas in 5 sets, which I thought was very cool. That was a very fun matchup right there. I thought Florida, as long as they have Kennedy Martin, they're not going down without a fight. They're not going anywhere. And let me just say, it was such a bad week. It was a bad weekend to be a Big 12 team, which more on that later. But yeah, Florida was able to outlast Kansas, which I thought was pretty cool. That's considered an upset, and Kansas was the home team. But I will say, I think Florida having its ups and downs and being battle tested really helped them out, especially in the SEC. And again, Kennedy Martin was just an absolute beast. I want to say she had 33 kills. I can't fully confirm that, which I think might actually be either a team record or a regional record for NCAA women's volleyball. But regardless, Kennedy Martin went off, and Florida is off to the Sweet 16 or the regional semis, where they will play Stanford. Now, it was kind of a matter of where they will be playing, because Northern Iowa Louisville was probably the most stressful match of Saturday, which I thought was a very good matchup. I didn't think Northern Iowa was actually going to put up too much of a fight, but I kind of forgot that Northern Iowa actually played Louisville, and they have some familiarity with Louisville, and Northern Iowa and Louisville had to go the distance. And oh man, Northern Iowa, I understand serving tough is key when it comes to volleyball, but sometimes when you serve a little too tough in a crucial situation, it just comes back to haunt you. I think Northern Iowa missed a bunch of serves. They missed quite a bit of serves, whether they had match point, whether it was like deadlocked at like 14-14, and so on and so forth. Like, Northern Iowa is going to be haunted when they look back at those missed serves, but they gave Louisville all that they could handle. And I want to say, had Louisville lost, it might have been Stanford hosting the regional, which I think would have been really cool if you ask me. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Louisville outlasted Northern Iowa, or UNI, 22-20 in the 5th set. So I got to give major kudos to Louisville for outlasting them. They'll play Purdue, which Purdue will want a little revenge against Louisville after, I think they lost to Louisville last year in the NCAA tournament. It was either in the round of 32 or the round of 16. Either way, I think Louisville-Purdue is going to be a fun matchup. I'm really looking forward to see how Purdue's kind of that team where they're good, but they just can't seem to get over the hump. And their last Elite 8 appearance was 2 seasons ago, where Purdue knocked off BYU in 5 sets, only to eventually get only eventually to lose in the Elite Eight. But I think for Purdue, they've got a really good shot. I think they do have a chance. Louisville, my thing is for Louisville, there's a lot of pressure on them because they're hosting. For those that don't know, they are hosting the Final Four and the national championship, which will be on ESPN and ABC, respectfully. But yeah, Louisville's got a lot of pressure on them. They're the team that's going to be hosting the Final Four and national championship. And I feel that that kind of paints a target on their back. So hopefully for Louisville's sake, they don't kind of look too far ahead, because if they think they're going to get an easy matchup with Purdue, they got another thing coming. Purdue has obviously Eva Hudson and Chloe Chicoine and Raven Colvin. I forget her first name, but Hornung, who had such an amazing dig, which was actually number 1 on ESPN's top plays, which I thought was pretty cool. But Hornung, the libero for Purdue, was absolutely amazing. You also got Taylor Anderson at center. So this one's going to be a fun one. It's going to be one of the more fun 1-versus-4 matches. Then going up to the upper right quadrant, you have, I think pretty much everything was finalized. But you've got Penn State Marquette, which Marquette wound up winning. I think they are in the Sweet 16 for the first time, or for only the third time in its program's history. But Ryan Theis, for those that didn't see the Set Point Extra Points episode on Saturday, Ryan Theis got his 400th win, which I thought was pretty cool. But now they got to take on a very talented Penn State team, which Penn State, although they had a little trouble against North Carolina, it was only just a little, because North Carolina is good, but Penn State is playing on a whole other level. Even when they have Izzy Stark at center, they've got so much firepower, like Jess Merzik. They've got Taylor Trammell. The list goes on and on for that team. So there's not too many weaknesses on Penn State that you could really exploit all that much. And then before that, it'll be Texas versus Creighton. That's probably going to be the best Sweet 16 or regional semifinal match of the entire Sweet 16, which Creighton, Texas, that's such a toss-up. I actually have Texas going to the Final Four just because, in my opinion, postseason Texas hits a whole lot different than regular season Texas. But Creighton is hungry for the Elite Eight. They're hungry for the Elite Eight. They know they've got quite a bit of a good amount of seniors on their team, a good senior class, such as Norsis and Kendra Waite, just to name a couple. So I think Creighton and Texas is going to be a barn burner. That's going to be an instant classic. Heck, I can even go as far as to say I think Texas Creighton might be more dramatic than Tennessee Texas from last season, but we shall see. And then to the lower right quadrant to close off pretty much the entire round of 32. Well, we obviously have Wisconsin advancing, but their opponent will actually be Texas A&M. So remember when I said it was such a bad weekend to be a Big 12 team? Well, Arizona State was another team that fell in the round of 32 as Texas A&M beat them in 4 sets. Now, Texas A&M is a very good team. This is actually going to be their first Sweet 16 appearance since 2019, which I think is pretty darn impressive. And Texas A&M being battle tested in the SEC really helped them. Logan Lednicki is phenomenal, as well as Helmuth, who transferred from Pepperdine. So Emily Helmuth, for that matter. But yeah, Texas A&M, they look sneaky good, and I think a lot of people, including myself, overlooked Texas A&M. So I think for Texas A&M, they could give Wisconsin a battle, because if I recall correctly, I think Texas A&M played Wisconsin earlier in the season. And Wisconsin does have a fairly young team, and they did have a little bit of trouble against Georgia Tech, but you can't be too sure. I think Wisconsin, Texas A&M is going to be a battle. And then lastly, we had Nebraska pretty much cleaning out the clocks of Miami, just pretty much sweeping them. Miami didn't even cross 20 points, let alone they didn't have a player with no more than, I think, 26 or 27 swings. Yeah, I expected a little more from Miami, but Nebraska is just a cut above the rest. And Nebraska playing at the Bob or the Bob Devaney Center, they hit a whole lot more differently than playing elsewhere. So Nebraska is going to be scary this is going to be scary for Dayton, who wound up beating Baylor in 5 on Friday, which is a pretty good win. Again, very bad weekend to be a Big 12 team. Dayton is making its first Sweet 16 or regional semifinal appearance in program history, which I think is pretty awesome if you ask me. So, yeah, I think Nebraska-Dayton can – now, Nebraska, I mean, I'll get into the preview a little bit, but on paper, this looks like it's going to be all Nebraska, but do not count out Dayton. Dayton, count them out at your own risk just because Dayton is not a Power 5, but I think they're starting to come on, and I think we all have kind of overlooked them just because they didn't really have the powerhouse schedule that most of these other NCAA women's volleyball teams had. But yeah, that's going to do it for the first 2 rounds. And yeah, that if you all definitely do check out Set Point Extra Points and my recap of that, just because I really want to do like a little bit of an emergency episode where I really wanted to recap all of these shows. So, yeah. Okay, so that is pretty much that for all of the NCAA women's volleyball first 2 rounds. So we're actually going to circle the wagons back to NCAA women's volleyball a little later. But right now, let's discuss a little NCAA women's volleyball Division III action as it happened. Juniata outlasted Wisconsin Whitewater in 5 sets. So first 2 sets were pretty much all Juniata. Juniata won them by scores of 25-19 and 25-19. It was looking like this was going to be all Juniata. But then Wisconsin Whitewater woke up in that 3rd set. Got off to a little bit of a slow start, but then they really picked it up as they won the 3rd set 25-15. Their blocking was just really freaking good. It's tough to beat a team when you have when your blocking is just such on point. And Wisconsin Whitewater's blocking was just absolutely amazing. Then the 4th set came. Juniata got off to a much better start. Wisconsin Whitewater was kind of hanging in there. Juniata had match point at 24-22, and eventually Wisconsin Whitewater was able to save 1 set point, and then they got the block, which eventually landed inbounds, and suddenly it was 24-24. Eventually it got to 26-26. Wisconsin Whitewater had their first set point, and then I don't know what happened here, but the Juniata setter set the ball to the left side, and there was no one there. It was like, what? It's like maybe she thought someone was there, but she misread that. But that was how Wisconsin Whitewater won the 4th set and eventually forced a 5th set. But the 5th set was pretty much all Juniata. Juniata in the 5th set kind of reminded me of Nebraska. I'm sorry, Nebraska fans, in the 5th set back in 2021. But yeah, Juniata got off to an 8-0 start. They got off to a 3-0 start, forced Wisconsin Whitewater to burn a timeout. They got off to a 6-0 start, forced Wisconsin Whitewater to use their second and final timeout. Eventually, again, they went up 8-0 at the side switch. And I was basically thinking it is panic time for Wisconsin Whitewater. By the time they got their first point, Juniata still had 8 points. So basically after the side switch, Wisconsin Whitewater was able to score. And I'll give Wisconsin Whitewater a little bit of credit. They did battle back. They got to within 4, but unfortunately for them, Juniata just was too much for them as they wound up winning the 5th set 15-10. It was just a strong set. I would say that maybe if the 5th set went to 25 points, maybe Wisconsin Whitewater would have had a better shot at winning it. But honestly, you cannot get off to and you cannot spot the other team 8 points in the 5th set. It just will not go your way. So leading Juniata in the win was Mackenzie Coley, who had 19 kills. Kennedy Christie had 18 kills, and Lily Podolin had 14 kills. In terms of digs, Olivia Foley had 56 assists, and she had 18 digs. Sydney Ohl had 11 digs, and Kennedy Christie added 12 digs to go along with her 18 kills. In terms of service aces, they got 2 aces from Kennedy Christie. They got 2 aces from Kiana Sky Reset Hernandez, or as the play-by-play guy called her, Reset Hernandez, who I thought was who I thought she was probably one of the better liberos out there. She also had 19 digs, so I can't overlook that. I kind of overlooked that. But, yeah, in the fifth set, I guess I should also mention this. Juniata hit 417. They only had one hitting error, which is just downright impressive. And Larry B says Juniata is pretty good. Yes, but they kind of were living on the edge. In the semifinal, they needed a reverse sweep to take down Hope. And then they also needed 5, and they almost got reverse swept against Wisconsin Whitewater. But it just goes to show that's why you play the game. Anyway, so Wisconsin Whitewater was led by Jenna Weinfurt, who had 25 kills. They also got 16 kills from Elena Jansky. They got 18 digs from Weinfurt, 19 digs from Jaden Evans, 12 digs from Elena Jansky. They also got 8 digs from Aubrey Cruz, who had 38 assists. Wisconsin Whitewater only had 2 service aces, which I was a little surprised at that number, but they kind of made up for it in terms of blocks. They blocked the ball really well. They had 10 blocks from Hannah Proctor. They had 8 blocks from Abby Dix. They had 8 blocks from Aubrey Cruz, so on and so forth. This team was just a blocking machine, but unfortunately, it was not enough as Juniata wound up winning their 97th straight match and their 3rd straight national championship. And you got to give it up to Heather Pavlik, the wife of former Set Point guest Mark Pavlik, who coaches Penn State men's volleyball. But yeah, this streak, Mark Pavlik said it best on Instagram. If you think this streak is easy, one, think again. Sometimes great teams don't always need to be great, but they need to be great when it truly matters. And I think he definitely makes a good point. Like, Juniata was cruising through the first 2 sets, and the Wisconsin Whitewater had its backs against the wall, and they obviously needed to have a big 3rd set. And then the 4th set, Juniata had those match points, unfortunately couldn't convert as Wisconsin Whitewater kept their season alive. But Juniata was back to being great when it truly mattered in that 5th set. They got off to that 8-0 start, and they just never looked back. So Juniata is indeed a great team. And, yeah, they're national champions, which I think is pretty impressive. Now, Wisconsin Whitewater had themselves a fantastic season, and lots of credit to them. Like I said on X, formerly known as Twitter, they deserve all the credit in the world. They did everything and more in terms of trying to make the 5th set, make it to a 5th set, which you just need to have that. You kind of need to have that desperation and that hunger to try to keep your season alive and keep your championship hopes going. And I thought Wisconsin Whitewater did an excellent job of that. Unfortunately, they just ran into a buzzsaw in that 5th set, and in a 5th set where you're going up to 15 points as opposed to 25 points, you just can't afford to spot a team that many points. It just does not work that way. Because 8 points is basically half of what you need in order to win. So again, Juniata was just impressive, and I thought they just had that it factor to them. So great job to both teams. Congratulations to Juniata for winning the NCAA Division III National Championship. I had to make note of that just because that is considered volleyball as well. So I'll have plenty more volleyball where that came from, as I'm going to be discussing some NCAA Division II women's volleyball, some 3C2A women's volleyball, a little bit of the NIVC, and then we'll circle it back to NCAA women's volleyball. So keep it locked here. Oh, and we can't forget about the NAIA women's volleyball tournament, because that's currently going on right now. The semifinals are currently going on right now. But we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got some NAIA women's volleyball to discuss, as well as some NCAA Division II women's volleyball. Keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, New York? This is Ricky K coming at you with the NY State of Sports, a new show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Listen to me every Thursday afternoon as we bring you the latest takes on the Yankees, Mets, Jets, Giants, Knicks, Nets, Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. Plus, you get some college hoops and what's the local sports events going on in the area. It's a state that never sleeps, so why not get the opinions and sports takes that never sleep? Again, every Thursday, 2 p.m. to the NY State of Sports. We'll see you then.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Calise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports, and I will update you on all that's black and gold. Have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Calise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as the Injury Report with Ralph Calise. I'm sure we'll be talking some Pitt women's volleyball, as well as check out New York State of Sports with Ricky K. All right, let's discuss a little bit of some 3C2A women's volleyball. So I haven't really discussed a whole lot of 3C2A women's volleyball this season, obviously because of the NCAA women's volleyball Division I that's all been happening, but I digress. All right, so state was this past weekend. It took place at Mount San Antonio College, and if you haven't been at Mount San Antonio College, it actually is a pretty amazing facility in terms of like its entirety of college. So, all right, so in terms of the well, let's actually go past the list. I know I just flashed up the who won the 3C2A state championship, but for those of you that don't know what 3C2A volleyball is, it stands for California Community College Athletic Association. And I know I kind of missed up a little bit on the NJCAA and some of its Division I and Division III matches, and Division II matches, but I'll circle the wagons on those in a future show. But for right now, let's talk some 3C2A. So the 4 teams that made the state finals from Southern California and Northern California were as follows. Starting with Southern California, we had Cerritos, San Diego Mesa, LA Mission, and Long Beach City. Then for the Northern California side of things, we had Fresno City, Sierra, American River, and Feather River. So this was kind of the regional semifinals per se. So this was basically the state quarterfinals, where the first 2 rounds were basically the Sweet 16 and whatnot. But anyway, so we had Fresno City taking down Cerritos College in 5 sets, which I think was pretty darn impressive. Cerritos has a pretty solid team. Fresno City does have a great was a little bit of a cut above the rest, as they actually won the 5th set 19-17, which I thought was pretty darn impressive. Then we had San Diego Mesa taking down Sierra in 4 sets, which all these sets were close. The sets were decided by 3 or less points, which is what you love to see in a volleyball match. And the 4th set was decided 27-25, where San Diego Mesa, which only had 1 loss, was able to win that one, which I thought was pretty darn impressive. Then you had American River taking down LA Mission in 4 sets. So nothing too big about that. LA Mission did have a bit of a dramatic 5-set match against my beloved Orange Coast College Pirates. So I don't know if there was a little bit of a letdown, but I think American River always has a great team, so kind of not too surprising seeing that. Then we had Feather River taking down the top overall seed Long Beach City, top overall seed from the Southern California region in 4 sets, which it wasn't too dramatic. I mean, the 3rd and 4th set were won 25-22, but Feather River, they're kind of also like American River. They're also as talented in the north. They're just as talented in the Northern California section. So you have that right there. So only one team made it out from the Southern California region, and that was San Diego Mesa, which go figure. But anyway, then for the regional finals, well, okay, maybe not the regional finals since obviously there's only one SoCal team. So in terms of the state semifinals, you had Fresno City taking down San Diego Mesa in 4 sets. It was the 2 teams split the first 2 sets, and then Fresno City wound up winning the 3rd and 4th set. I wouldn't say convincingly, but just strongly. So you had that right there. Then you had Feather River sweeping American River. Those are 2 longtime rivals with one another. So I imagine I would say there was bad blood, but I think it was just a little bit of a blood boiler. And I was a little surprised San Diego Mesa, who only had 1 loss coming in, wound up losing. But San Diego Mesa just ran into a little bit more of a buzzsaw against Fresno City. So I was impressed by Fresno City. But San Diego Mesa, unfortunately, was the last SoCal team, which means we had an all Northern California final with Fresno City taking on Feather River, which I think back in the old day, if the state tournament was a lot longer, where I think you had to win you had to win 2 straight matches. It was kind of like tennis or baseball for that matter. If you follow where if there was like a tie after I think Saturday you had like the final match number 1, and then on Sunday you would have the final match number 2, where if both teams had won a match against one another, they would play to 1 set to 25 points, still must win by 2. That eventually got scrapped, but Feather River and Fresno City locked horns with one another. Fresno City took the first 2 sets 28-26 and 25-21, but Feather River eventually woke up, took the 3rd set 25-15, and they took the 4th set 25-18. And suddenly it was a 5th set barn burner, and eventually Fresno City just did not have enough gas in them as Feather River took the 5th set 15-5 as Feather River stuck that feather in their cap, and it was a reverse sweep, which was downright impressive if you ask me. So it's their 3rd state championship in women's volleyball and their 3rd in the last 6 years, which I think is pretty darn impressive, as Feather River was the runner-up last year, which they eventually lost to San Diego Mesa, who had a fantastic season. So I thought this was pretty darn cool, and the 2 teams had actually split their regular season meetings with one another. So Feather River got the rubber match, which was very good. So, and their head coach Sarah Ritchie even told her team, "No worries, we're just gonna put the reverse sweep on them." Oh man, that is like Brian Rofer level right there. That's like Brian Rofer swagger, because when he got interviewed following losing the 2nd set in the NAIA Men's Volleyball Championship, he said, "Well, we'll see you once we force a 5th set." And his team did force a 5th set, and they wound up reverse sweeping, I think it was Arizona Christian in the championship. But I digress. But yeah, Chloe Albiz, she had 20 kills on 50 swings, which means she hit 380, which was pretty darn impressive. She was actually named the most valuable player of the tournament, and she had 11 digs to go along with 3 blocks. So that was amazing right there. Yeah, that's just a little bit of the gist right there. You have to feel bad for Fresno City. It's like you're up 2-0, and then you get reverse swept. That's the worst feeling. Like getting reverse swept in a regular season match, that's one thing. But getting reverse swept in the state championship, oh man, that's gonna live with the majority of those players throughout their sports career. I mean, obviously they made a lot of it's impressive to make it so far, But to get reverse swept, my heart hurts for them. And the sad thing about Fresno City is that they just didn't really have too much traction of the match following that second set. They didn't even hit over 200. The highest they hit was 176. And for Feather River, they really got it going. They kept getting progressively better throughout the match in terms of hitting. They start off hitting 133, losing that overtime first set. Then they hit 196, and they hit 265, and they hit 375. And then they kind of went back a little, but still they hit 364, which I think is pretty good. So, yeah, it was a tough way to go out if you're Fresno City, but Feather River deserves a lot of credit. Now, for Feather River, I mentioned that Chloe Albies led the way with 23 kills. She had 11 digs to go along with 3 blocks. Lucy Ryan also had 12 kills, and she hit 312 for Feather River. And I'm going to try to pronounce this. And Tui Nalvai. She had 10 kills, and she had 22 digs, which I thought was impressive. Mia Rossman had 21 digs. And for setting purposes, Maya Can had 33 assists to go along with 12 digs. Taya Gibbs had 13 assists to go along with 9 digs. Feather River as a team, they had 81 digs, which kind of made you feel like you were watching a Big Ten conference match, but I digress. As a team, Feather River had 15 blocks, which I thought was pretty impressive, which unfortunately for Fresno City, they only had 6 blocks. But they made up for that in terms of service aces, as they had 9 service aces compared to Feather River's 6. Both teams didn't miss too many serves, as both teams only had 4 missed serves, as the Rams were led by Ashlyn Van Groningen, who had 14 kills. Karina Rodriguez had 12 kills. Reese Catone had 11 kills. Savannah Fauntleroy had 45 assists to go along with 10 digs. Phoebe Constable had 22 digs. Malia Edwardson had 19 digs. I'm trying to get these names right. I know y'all are probably kind of laughing at me struggling to pronounce these names. Constable also had 9 kills as well. But as a team, Fresno City only hit 7.72, while Feather River hit 238, which kind of goes back to me saying that Feather River was getting progressively better in terms of their hitting, while Fresno City was just going backward and backward, which was not ideal for them. So that is that for the 3C2A. Congratulations to Feather River on winning the state championship. And the all-tournament team was as follows. I mentioned MVP being Chloe Albies of Feather River. And Tui Nalvai of Feather River also was named to the all-tournament team. Lucy Ryan of Feather River, all-tournament team. Setter of the tourney actually went to Savannah Fauntleroy of Fresno City. Malia Edwardson was the libero of the tourney. Phoebe Constable of Fresno City, she made all-tournament. You also had Jasmine Soto Castro of Cerritos making all-tournament. Paige Skinner of Sierra making all-tournament. Oluwatoyin Sunday of LA Mission made all-tournament. Kaylani Moncada of Long Beach City, she made all-tournament. Bella Town of San Diego Mesa, she made all-tournament. And then Morgan Castaneda of American River, she made all-tournament. So there you have it right there. That's your all-tournament, and that is pretty much that for the 3C2A Women's Volleyball Championship. All right. Now let's jump on into some – and let's see if so right now, the NAI Women's Volleyball Champion – or the NAI Women's Volleyball Semifinals is going on right now. Indiana Weiselin actually – leads Southern Oregon 1-0, but we'll circle the wagons back to that a little later. So let's go over some NCAA Women's Volleyball Division II action. So in Division II, your quarterfinals is as follows. So Division II, and I think Division III also does this as well, they rearrange the seedings after the first couple rounds, which I think is pretty cool. So if your seed is not as high as it once was, and you're amongst the final 8, then the committee will reshuffle everything and you'll be seated differently. So Fair State, of the 8 teams, Fair State, Bentley, Lynn, Wangate, Central Oklahoma, San Francisco State, Angelo State, and Gannon. The seeds are as follows. So the matchups are as follows. Number 1 seed Fair State plays number 8 Bentley. Number 4 seed Lynn plays number 5 Wingate. Number 2 Central Oklahoma plays number 7 San Francisco State. And then number 3 Angelo State plays number 6 Gannon. So you have that right there. That's pretty much your quarterfinal. So looking back at the second round, or the Sweet 16, you had Gannon sweeping West Virginia State. You had, the third round. The third round was as follows: Gannon beat Wheeling in 4 sets. Central Oklahoma took down St. Cloud State in 5 sets, which St. Cloud State was a 1 seed from their region. That was the upper left bracket. Then you had Bentley taking down Adelphi, or Bentley taking down Adelphi, then American International, where Bentley wound up winning in 5 sets. And Bentley was the number 1 seed of their region. And then Fair State, everyone's favorite NCAA Division II school, which just seems to be good at everything, they took down Findlay in 5 sets as well. Upper right bracket portion, we had Lynn taking down Tampa in 5 sets. That was a big one right there. I didn't think Tampa was going to lose. Tampa was one of the favorites to make it out. Tampa in NCAA Division II women's volleyball is always a perennial juggernaut. But unfortunately, they just met their match as Lynn wound up pulling the plug on them. Mad props to Lynn. And then you had Wingate taking down Lander in straight sets. Then jumping to the lower right bracket portion, we had Angelo State taking down MSU Denver in 4 sets. Then you had San Francisco State taking down Cal Poly Pomona in straight sets. Now, Cal Poly Pomona was kind of a little bit of a fun surprise, as they made the Sweet 16. And San Francisco State is also a special team because they actually dethroned the last year's reigning champion, Cal State Los Angeles, in 5 sets in the opening round. So mad props to San Francisco State. Cal State LA is not an easy team, and they are coached by Juan Figueroa, the former Puerto Rico Pythons coach in the NBA. So that's pretty much how the Elite Eight is pretty much how the Elite Eight got here in terms of the NCAA Division II championship. So yeah, I'm probably not even going to try to predict this. I mean, I guess I'll say Fair State takes down Fair. If I had to pick the Final Four, I guess I'll say Fair State, Lynn. You know what? Give me San Francisco State over Central Oklahoma. This is going to be a risky one, but give me San Francisco State. I think they could be the Cinderella of this, just like Cal State LA. And then give me Angelo State over Gannon. So I got Fair State, Lynn, San Francisco State, and Gannon advancing to the Final Four. I'm not even going to try to predict the final because knowing me, it's probably going to be wrong. So, I mean, if I had to predict a championship match from the the Elite Eight, I guess I'll say Fair State and San Francisco State. Now watch as the final happens to be Bentley and Gannon, but I digress. All right, but that is that for the NCAA Division II portion of the show. Now let's circle back to NCAA women's volleyball. So, or not NCAA women's volleyball, NAI women's volleyball, as Indiana Wiseland is up 14-11 in set number 2. Remember, they took the first set against Southern Oregon 27-25. Maybe I didn't say that, but there you go. So the first semifinal of NAI women's volleyball was actually Bellevue of Nebraska taking down Corbin of Oregon in straight sets, which I was kind of getting ready for this show before seeing a little bit of the stream. But yeah, Bellevue taking down Corbin in straight sets was pretty impressive if you ask me. So looking at the entire bracket, how Corbin got there, they actually wound up winning their pool. I guess I should mention how every team got out of pool play. So in terms of pool play, Montana Western actually won their pool in Pool A, which included beating the number 1 overall seed Northwestern of Iowa, which, man, that's a big one right there. Then in Pool B, you had Indiana Wiseland, last year's tournament champion, which actually lost a couple of matches, but I digress. Then in Pool C, you had Southern Oregon winning its pool. They were the 3 seed. In Pool D, you had Concordia of Nebraska. In Pool E, you had Bellevue of Nebraska, which set up an all-Nebraska quarterfinal. Then in Pool F, you had Eastern Oregon, which set up an all-Oregon matchup in the quarterfinals. In Pool G, you had St. Thomas of Florida, which I thought was pretty cool right there. And then Pool H, you had Corbin of Oregon winning their pool. So the quarterfinal went as follows. Corbin took down Montana Western in 4 sets. You had Bellevue of Nebraska taking down Concordia of Nebraska in 5 sets. You had Indiana Wiseland taking down St. Thomas of Florida in straight sets. And then you had Southern Oregon defeated Eastern Oregon in 5 sets, which I thought was pretty darn good. And Southern Oregon actually made history as the Southern Oregon Raiders, because if Larry B, if you're still listening to this, I'm sorry if I have to say this. Some Raiders have to be good. Yeah, the Southern Oregon Raiders have been doing great, unlike the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm sorry. Anyway, but yeah, that was pretty darn impressive, as it was one of the more riveting matchups, and I think this might be their first ever semifinal appearance, which I think is pretty darn good. And yeah, it is their first ever semifinal appearance, as they're playing currently right now the defending champion Indiana Wiseland. But looking at the Bellevue Corbin matchup, Bellevue was led by E. Fontaine, who had 10 kills. You had Sydney Sledge with 9 kills, as well as Savannah Berger, who had 9 kills. Keely Kivanaimi, is that how it's pronounced? Kivanaimi, she had 8 kills. As a team, Bellevue only hit 213, but they held their opponent to 184. As Emma Bischoff had 12 kills to go along with Michaela Roginski. She also had 12 kills as well. She had 423. But that's kind of where the buck stopped, as they did get 8 kills from Kylie Davey. But again, that was kind of where the buck stopped, as they blocked well. I'll give them that much as well. But again, they pretty much were strong in every statistic. I just think that how they lost was kind of baffling. Bellevue wound up winning the second set 28-26, which, oh man, that was kind of the big turning point right there. Losing that second set really killed Corbin's chances, because at that point, Corbin actually they rallied all the way back, wound up from 23-21 down, had a set point opportunity at 24-23, but then the Bellevue managed to get back in it, tied up at 24-24. Corbin had another set point after a kill, and then unfortunately for Corbin, they had a hitting error, which, oh man, that's a heartbreaker right there, having a hitting error. And then eventually Bellevue managed to have a couple set points here and there, 2 set points, and then eventually on the third one, actually, no, they did have 2 set points, and on the second one, they managed to capitalize on a hitting error, which really sucks for Corbin. And what really, really sucks is that for Corbin, they actually led 22-19 in the third set, and then unfortunately for them, they wound up getting tied. No, they were still up 22-21, and then eventually they went up 23-22, and they had a set point. Corbin had a set point, but unfortunately for them, Bellevue got a kill, and then they eventually had a hitting error, which, yikes. And then eventually Bellevue closed the match with a kill from Sydney Sledge. So unfortunately for Corbin, they had all of the set point opportunities, but they just could not close it out. And that is something you just can't do. You can't keep a team like that in the match. And Bellevue, I imagine, had a strong showing because they're from Nebraska, and Nebraska has a big volleyball showing and a big volleyball following, whether it's the University of Nebraska or if it's Creighton or if it's like all these other Nebraska schools. Adam Clark pops into the chat room. He says, good evening, Teran. Well, good evening to you too, Adam. Hopefully we got to hear a little bit of Loyola Chicago and how they had an amazing, I wouldn't say amazing tournament run. They had an amazing win over BYU, but unfortunately they wound up losing to Purdue. So thank you for popping in, Adam. But yeah, going back to the NAIA in terms of women's volleyball, yeah, that's how Bellevue was able to take down Corbin. And they're awaiting the winner of Southern Oregon versus Indiana Wiesland, which I don't want to say this negatively about Southern Oregon, but I think it's going to be Indiana Wiesland because Indiana Wiesland is the reigning champion. And as good as Southern Oregon is, I just think Indiana Wiesland has more experience. And that's big when it comes to a tournament like this. Yeah, Indiana Wiesland is up 19-16 in set 2. So we'll circle the wagons back on that a little bit later. But yeah, pretty much Indiana Wiesland. I'll keep an eye on that for a little bit, but that's pretty much going to do it for some NAI women's volleyball. So we'll see. All right, but when we come back, we've got some NIVC to talk about, and then we've got some previews of the NCAA women's volleyball Sweet 16 or regional semis. Keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always willing to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernick, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back with Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as Chi-Town Weekly and Sensei Sports with Cale Henderson. All right, let's talk some NIVC action as that is already in the Great Eight, which I personally like, in my opinion. So I like the name. I like some of their names, by the way. So yeah, NIVC. Then we'll talk some NCAA women's volleyball regional action or regional semifinals action, and then I'll let you all go. So round one went as follows. In the upper left quadrant, we had Pacific taking down Weber State in 5 sets, Wyoming taking down Idaho State in 4 sets, and then Utah Valley sweeping Washington State. In the lower left quadrant, we had Stephen F. Austin taking down Jackson State in straight sets, Arkansas State taking down UT Rio Grande Valley in 4 sets, Georgia Southern taking down Southeast Missouri in straight sets, and then Northern Colorado taking down App State in 4 sets. In the upper right quadrant of the bracket, we had Bowling Green taking down Binghamton in 4 sets, DePaul sweeping Toledo, and Omaha outlasting Lindenwood in 5 sets. In the lower right bracket of the quadrant, we had St. John sweeping NC A&T, and then we also had East Carolina taking down Winthrop in 4 sets. And then we also had UConn defeating Mercer in straight sets. So that was that for round one. Now for the Super 16, we had Arizona sweeping Pacific, Wyoming defeating Utah Valley in 5 sets, which that was actually hosted by Wyoming. Then in the lower quadrant, we had Arkansas State taking down Stephen F. Austin in 5 sets. And then we had Northern Colorado taking down Georgia Southern in 5 sets. In the upper left quadrant of the Super 16, we had Bowling Green taking down Wright State in 4 sets. And then we had DePaul taking down Omaha in 5 sets. And then in the lower right quadrant of the Super 16, we had St. John's taking down Virginia in 4 sets. And then we also had UConn taking down East Carolina in 4 sets. So the Great Eight is as follows. At Arizona, it'll be Arizona versus Wyoming. And then also, we have Arkansas State versus Northern Colorado. Both will be held at the University of Arizona, aka the McHale Center. Both will be played on Wednesday. As of this recording, this is being recorded on Monday. But yeah, those 2 matches will be played on Wednesday. Northern Colorado, Arkansas State will go first. Then we will have Arizona versus Wyoming. In the upper right quadrant of the Great Eight, we have Bowling Green versus DePaul. Nice little central battle right there. Bowling Green coming from Ohio, and then DePaul coming from Chicago. It's a nice little match right there. DePaul is actually going to be hosting. So DePaul actually took down my pick to go to the Final Four the Fab Four being Omaha. So big ups to DePaul. DePaul really worked Marquette. I will go as far as to say if DePaul had beaten Marquette at least once, they might have dampened Marquette's chances of making the NCAA tournament. And then in the lower quadrant of the Great Eight, you have St. John's and UConn, which is going to be a Big East battle. We got quite a bit of some Big East teams. You got UConn, St. John's, and DePaul, which I think is pretty darn cool if you ask me. You only got one Power 4 conference team in Arizona, which everyone will still say that Arizona deserved to make the NCAA tournament because of that win over Kansas. But it is what it is. And I actually said that Arizona beat Arizona State, but that was actually false. It was Baylor that beat Arizona State, I think I said. But regardless, Arizona is doing great guns in the NIVC. Yeah, my picks, I think I had Mercer advancing to I think it was Virginia, if not, I'm not sure. I think it was like Mercer, Omaha, Northern Colorado, and Arizona advancing to the Fab Four. Arizona and Northern Colorado are still alive. Like I said, Northern Colorado is a dangerous team. And Arizona, we all know how talented they are. DePaul, I wouldn't be surprised if they took down Bowling Green, but Bowling Green's pretty good too. And then St. John's versus UConn, that's a Big East battle. All bets are off with it when it comes to that. All right, but that is that for the NIVC portion of the show. I wanted to give some love to the NIVC just because, well, it's volleyball too. And actually right now, Bowling Green and Bowling Green and DePaul are actually playing right now, which I think I actually do need to check on how they're doing. I meant to check on how they were doing, just because they play tonight. UConn St. John's plays on Thursday, and then the Arizona matches will be on Wednesday. So a lot of weird things going on in the NIVC, but I do want to check on how Bowling Green is doing. And yeah, Bowling Green actually took down DePaul in 4 sets, 25-14, 25-19, 17-25, and 25-18. So for those that needed a volleyball fix after the first 2 rounds of the NCAA women's volleyball tournament, or all the volleyball that happened last week, there you go. All right, but Bowling Green advances to the Fab Four, where they face the winner of St. John's, UConn. So congratulations to Bowling Green on advancing to the Fab Four. So unfortunately for DePaul, the end of the season comes for them, but they had a fantastic season. So set point salute to them. All right, but now let's jump on into the NCAA women's volleyball regional semifinals, or the Sweet 16, as I like to call it. So, but first, let's take a little bit of a quick peek of how Indiana Wesleyan and Southern Oregon is doing right now. So, yeah, Indiana Wesleyan's now up 2-0 on Southern Oregon. They took the second set 25-27. So it's looking like Indiana Wesleyan's going to be advancing to the NAIA Women's Volleyball National Championship match. So it's going to be Bellevue versus Indiana Wesleyan, for those keeping track. And yeah, Indiana Wesleyan is the reigning tournament champion from last year. So it's going to be a barn burner. I imagine Bellevue of Nebraska is going to be having a big showing, just because Nebraska is very passionate about volleyball, not just from, like I said, not just from Nebraska or Creighton or even Nebraska Kearney, from all over Nebraska volleyball. Heck, check out the Omaha Supernovas from the Pro Volleyball Federation. So there you go. All right, but I'll circle back to how they're doing. I mean, unless something changes, I probably won't be circling the wagons back to that. Just probably going to get a brief update for like set 3. But all right, regional semifinals. So starting off, we have Pitt versus Oregon. This is going to be a fun one. I really want to give Oregon a good shot at this. They have familiarity, but now they're going to be playing in Pitt as opposed to playing in Oregon the first go around. I think Oregon has a shot, but they can only go as far as Phoebe Owobete, Mimi Collier, and Oni Afobu take them. I think they've done really well, and Mimi Collier had a great little bounce back game as opposed to the first match where she had a very ugly match against High Point, but she was a force against TCU. But now they face an even bigger force in Pitt. Can Pitt continue their high rise and their momentum of being the number 1 overall seed? That still remains to be seen. Before we get on into but before that matchup occurs, that's actually going to be on Thursday, which unfortunately for me, I'm actually working on Thursday. I'm going to be missing a majority of these matches, which really sucks. I guess I could try to get my shift covered, but do I really want to do that at this point? No, maybe not. Anyway, before Pitt, Oregon, we actually have Missouri versus Kentucky. So Missouri beating SMU in the round of 32 was significant, as SMU was the only 2 seed from the region altogether to get knocked out. Every other team was not a 1 or 2 seed. So Missouri is not going to be an easy opponent by any means. Missouri has some stud players, but so does Kentucky. Obviously, when we see Kentucky, when we think of Kentucky, we think of the likes of Emma Grome. We have Aaron Lamb, Brooklyn DeLay, Morgan Wilson. The list goes on and on when it comes to that team. I think for that team, they're just the machine. But my thing is for Kentucky, they're facing an SEC opponent in the Sweet 16. Now, remember last year when Kentucky faced an SEC opponent in the Sweet 16 or the regional semifinals? They lost to that Arkansas team, which was very talented. But now they're facing a Kentucky team who has been riding high, taking down SMU, which I thought was pretty darn impressive. kind of got to feel for SMU because just like last year, they just could not get it done. But yeah, it's very tough to beat a team twice in one season, and Kentucky knows that from last year when they lost to Arkansas. Now they face a Kentucky team on a neutral site, so we'll see what happens with them. But I kind of got to give Missouri a good shot at this. They have some good players, and here are some players to watch for on Missouri for those that are wondering who is on Missouri and whatnot. Their top player is Jordan If, who has 413 kills and counting. Janet Demarius has 291 kills. Another top player to watch for, who actually leads the team in kills, is Michael Vernon, who has 470 kills. In terms of the dig department, you have Maya Sands, who needs no introduction. She has 508 digs and counting. I think that's going to be a very fun matchup. Running the offense will be Marina Crownover, the former Texas setter, who has 1,050 assists, and she has developed a good home at Missouri, which I think is really cool if you ask me. And another sweet moment for her was she and Missouri actually got the win over Texas, which I thought was a nice little get back game right there. Not trying to say that was revenge, but I think it was a nice get back game right there. You also got Reagan Haith and Colleen Finney on Missouri, which also can do some damage as well offensively. My thing is for Missouri, can they slow down Aaron Lamb and Morgan Wilson and Brooklyn DeLay? Brooklyn DeLay is going to be the big-time hitter that they got to keep an eye on. But if Missouri plays their game, I think they can make their way into the Elite Eight. But Kentucky has that championship pedigree, and they have that tournament pedigree. So we'll see if Missouri can handle a talented opponent that has Sweet 16 experience. Going down to the lower left quadrant, we have Stanford versus Florida. This is an instant classic right here. My thing for Florida is this. If Florida can get Kennedy Martin involved, obviously they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. There's no doubt in my mind that Florida can go as far as Kennedy Martin takes them. My thing is, however, can they get other players involved? Can they keep the ball away from Alina Ogilvie? That's the big thing right there. Can they slow down Aaliyah Rubin? Will Stanford get Sammy Francis involved? Those are some other big questions for me. My thing is for Florida, I think they definitely have a shot in this matchup. But they have to play some good sound volleyball, and they have to get other players involved, which if they can, and if they serve tough, that's another thing right there. If they can serve tough and get Stanford out of system, I think this can be a very interesting matchup. And I think we could see Florida possibly, hence the word possibly, pulling the upset. But Florida, they've been a little bit of up and down, but I think they're kind of finding their footing. I mean, Isabel Martin is also going to be a force to be reckoned with. I don't think those two have any relationship. AC Fitzpatrick, who I saw was back being healthy, she can be a force, especially at the service line. You also got Ellie McKissick, who has done wonders at the libero position. Alexis Stuckey and Taylor Parks have split time at the setter position. It's great to see Alexis Stuckey back in action, and it makes me happy because Alexis Stuckey is one of the more talented setters who is on a talented team. And you feel for her last year because last year she had that knee injury and she wasn't 100% to start off. So she eventually came back to the court and it was all smiles. They also got Jayla Auguste, who has 199 kills, and she leads the team in blocks with 116 blocks. So Florida could possibly, hence the word possibly, cut out the work for Stanford. But as long as Stanford plays its game and Cami Minor is able to get the ball to her pin hitters, to all of her hitters effectively, I think they definitely have a good chance. Ralph Clips pops into the chat room. He says, "Good evening, Teran. Sorry I'm late." No worries, man. He says, "Good evening, Teran. Great tournament so far. Pitt looking good. Have a great rest of your show." Well, thank you, Ralph. But yeah, I did talk about Pitt. That Stanford-Florida matchup is going to be before the true main matchup, being Purdue versus Louisville, which will come 30 minutes after Florida-Stanford. Now, again, Purdue-Louisville is going to be a fun little matchup. You got Louisville with Elena Scott, Anna DeBeer, PK Kong. They got a very talented team all over the place. My big thing is, will they slow down Eva Hudson? Will they slow down Chloe Chicoine? Will Purdue get Raven Colvin more involved? Will Allie Hornung have herself another big game? Will Louisville keep the ball away from Allie Hornung? That's my big thing right there. If they could do that, Purdue might be a little bit uncomfortable with it when it comes to that, especially playing in a hostile environment. I always see Purdue as a very strong home team, but an away team that kind of has a little bit meat left on the bone. But honestly, I think for Purdue, they could definitely win this one. If Louisville plays like they did against Northern Iowa, I could somehow see Purdue back in the Elite Eight. That would be something special. But first, they got to get past this Louisville team who has ambitions of winning and making it to the Final Four, which they are hosting. Now for the upper right quadrant, or the Penn State Regional. We have Penn State versus Marquette. This is going to be played on Friday, as well as the other matchup being Texas-Creighton. Now, I don't want to be mean when it comes to Penn State-Marquette, but I think Penn State's going to roll past Marquette. This is nothing against Marquette. It's great that they have advanced to the Sweet 16 or the regional semis, but Penn State is on a mission. Penn State has looked strong at home. They have looked super duper strong. I just don't see Penn State losing at Rec Hall. Until someone beats Penn State at Rec Hall, I got to go with Penn State winning this one fairly easily. But who knows? Maybe Marquette will surprise us. Maybe Marquette will give Penn State a battle. Before that, we have Texas versus Creighton, which is going to be a little bit of an early matchup. God, I wish I could see this in person. But Texas-Creighton is the best regional semifinal match of the regional semifinals. This might be the match of the day. And here's the thing. No matter who wins or who loses, we're going to see one of the best teams not advance to the Elite Eight. And we're going to see a team that persevered against a very talented opponent advance to the Elite Eight. Now, one of the reasons why I have Texas over Creighton is because I think Texas has the championship pedigree experience. I think they hit so differently in the postseason. Maddie Skinner is a force to be reckoned with. You also got Jenna Wenas, and Emma Halter continues to do well at the libero position. And then I think they've got the setter. I think Texas has the setter position figured out. They were running a 6-2. Now it's back to a 5-1, or now it's a 5-1. So I think for Texas, if they just play their game, and if they somehow slow down Nora Sis and all of the pin hitters on Creighton, I think Texas definitely has a good shot at advancing to the Elite Eight. But Creighton is hungry for an Elite Eight appearance. Last year they fell short. They were up, I think, 5-3 in the fifth set against Louisville, and then wound up losing in 5 sets. Creighton is hungry. Again, they've got a big senior class. So does Texas. So something's got to give here when it comes to these two. And then the lower right quadrant, we have Wisconsin versus Texas A&M. Now, for those thinking that Wisconsin's going to be rolling past Texas A&M, consider this. Wisconsin kind of had a little trouble against Georgia Tech. They've got a young setter in Charlie Furbringer, who I think is a stud. Sarah Franklin continues to do great. Devin Robinson continues to do great. And you also got Anna Smrek also doing great as well. Now, why do I think Texas A&M might actually have a chance at this? Well, Texas A&M has come so far. Again, this is a team that hadn't made the NCAA tournament. Well, they made the NCAA tournament last year, but prior to that, it was 2019 where they kind of went through a little bit of a revolving door of coaches. And then they eventually settled in for Jamie Morrison. Yeah, Jamie, that guy. Yeah, but I think Texas A&M might have a better shot than what most people give them credit for, just because A&M has been on one. I think they definitely have a good squad. I think that they definitely deserve a lot of credit for getting this far, and I think that Texas A&M, led by Logan Lednicki and Emily Helmuth, they can do damage against this Wisconsin team. I mean, Wisconsin's going to be a tough customer, that's for sure. But honestly, I think Logan Lednicki, and yes, his name is Jamie Morrison. I think that this Texas A&M definitely has a lot of meat on its bone remaining. So do not count out this Texas A&M team just because they were a 6th seed from their regional. But yeah, I imagine Wisconsin will win, but Wisconsin is going to have their hands full. Let's keep it a buck. And then the other regional final and the last regional semifinal, not regional final, we have Nebraska versus Dayton. All right. Nebraska has looked very strong through its first 2 matches. Dayton has kind of been the little engine that could. They took down South Carolina, Power 5 team. They took down Baylor, another Power 5 team who actually was hosting. My thing is for Dayton, can they win in a hostile environment that is Nebraska? I just don't think Dayton has played in a hostile environment like a Nebraska, like a Penn State or whatnot. It's just giving me vibes that they're going to be overwhelmed, just like Florida A&M was overwhelmed, like Miami was overwhelmed. I just don't see Dayton getting past Nebraska. If they get past Nebraska, then boy howdy, that team deserve a lot of credit. But I just don't think that this Dayton team can advance. Don't get me wrong, Dayton does have a good team. They do something that I think most people actually overlook. They actually have a win over Northern Iowa, which I think is a good win, a very good win right there. A 5-set win that was all the way back in week 1 of the NCAA women's volleyball season. And then obviously the Ohio State match was a no contest. And then they also have 2 solid wins against Wright State and Bowling Green. They also have another win against Illinois and Western Kentucky. One of their only 2 losses was to Marquette, which Marquette is a solid team and they are in the Sweet 16. So technically Dayton was kind of battle tested. It just didn't look like it at the time. Ranking wise, it was just not looking like they were battle tested at the time. But now I think scheduling those teams is starting to look like more of a $1 million idea than ever, because now this team is starting to roll quite nicely. And now I think this team can go forward as far as they can possibly go forward. And yeah, Dayton actually did play a Power 5 conference team in Illinois. So my apologies if I got them mixed up with South Dakota State, but them's the breaks. But again, back to Nebraska, they're just playing some darn good volleyball. The list goes. To keep it short and sweet, I think Nebraska will win. I think Dayton, if they play some scrappy defense, they can do everything they can to possibly, hence the word possibly, hang tough with Nebraska. But Nebraska is just going to be so tough and talented. And I just think playing at the Bob Devaney Center is not going to do them any justice, and it's not going to help them by any means. But if Dayton does pull off the upset, I'll be the first to congratulate them. And they will probably be busting a lot of brackets, because I'm pretty sure about 43% have picked Nebraska to win in the ESPN Bracket Challenge. But that is that for my breakdown of the regional semifinals or the Sweet 16. Again, I'll still refer to it as the Sweet 16. I don't care what anyone says. But on that note, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. I might be back with a little bit of a Set Point Extra Points episode. Hopefully maybe Saturday morning, or Saturday afternoon. It all depends on when the regional finals will be. Saturday doesn't work for me because I'm going to be super busy that day. Maybe Friday. Probably Friday after the regionals. And maybe I could do like a late episode, hopefully for all you night owls out there. But until then, I'll let you all know if I'll do a Set Point Extra Points episode. But until then, have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action, because we got plenty of it. We've got NCAA Division II volleyball. We've got NAIA volleyball, which, speaking of which, let's actually see how Indiana Wesleyan is doing against Southern Oregon in set number 3. Kind of tight. Indiana Wesleyan's up 17-14. I'll probably post the final result on X, formerly known as Twitter, @set_point_IE. So there you have it right there. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action from the NAIA, NCAA Division I aspect, NCAA Division II aspect, and anywhere else. And be on the lookout for hopefully some NCAA men's volleyball interviews from yours truly. Have a great week, everybody. Peace!